I stopped watching you around the time when your videos pretty much all began with, remember, guys, conservatives hate you and they
Mhm.
want you dead
Yeah,
by
that's still
guns.
true.
Okay, but okay, no, no, that's again, that's exaggerative. And you know it's exaggerative. It's okay to point out the extremism, but I don't think you need to take it to that level.
Well, I don't mean literally every conservative in America hates you and wants you dead. I'm referring to a general tendency. Yes, that is true. But I think the hyperbole is justified, and well-reasoned and proportioned within the circumstances. I do think that the conservative movement is ideologically aligned against the well-being of many minority communities in this country, and that the logic of their attitude towards those communities is fundamentally a genocidal one. Mostly the trans community. That's the main one.
Okay, yes, fundamentally a genocidal attitude. Yeah, sure. But when you say things like that, it turns conservatives away. It turns liberals away, probably. It speaks to your audience, your far left audience. And I just don't think it really is helpful in the grand scheme of
Do you
things
understand how
because,
you might be drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit when you're saying stuff like, okay, I agree that there are these bad tendencies on the right, but by pointing them out, you're actually somehow hurting our movement? Like, this is what
well, no, because
conservatives say.
you're not just pointing them out. You're bringing it all the way to, oh yeah, Republicans want you dead.
Sure. Yeah.
Like
Should I lie?
even if you're just referring to like the Republicans in the Senate, don't you see how that's kind of like counterintuitive?
No,
Don't you see?
The Republican Party right now is organized behind the narrative that trans people and people supportive of trans people are groomers, pedophiles. Mass labeling a minority demographic as pedophilic is a not only an easy precursor to genocide, but a not new one. It's not like it's not that uncommon. Obviously, once you've like essentially you're saying like this entire demographic is not only a social contagion, which they believe, of course, because they try to keep it from spreading to their kids. They've been doing that since, the 70s, with gay people. They also believe that, trans people are part of like an organized elite liberal academic effort to transgender their children. It sounds silly when I say it like that, but that is literally what they say and believe. Like the speech and the
Right.
laws put forward by these officials, voted on by their constituents, reflects that belief. This language only makes sense as a precursor to genocide. There's no context in which you would introduce hundreds of local bills trying to, on every level, like everything you can do within the purview of the law, to strip them of their rights medically, legally, socially, and then frame them as child molesters as a group, and then that not lead to some kind of like broader violence against them, which already exists, of course, in its own extent, but it can only get worse. It can get worse from here. So in that context, I think, they hate you and they want you dead is a pretty reasonable thing to say. Of course, I don't
Well,
literally
no.
mean no conservatives can be moved over, but like that's what the movement's doing.
Okay. Well, no. I wouldn't characterize that as they want you dead. It's they want to strip you of all your legal rights and socially ostracize you.
Well,
I don't really the genocide is coming from that.
why? Okay, out of curiosity, what makes you think that like the this doesn't lead to mass death?
I think it does. It leads to a uptick in political violence, and it leads to probably a higher rate of suicidality.
Okay. I mean, if we follow in the line of examples of previous times that far-right movements have led a social crusade against what they perceive to be degeneracy against the state, like, if they like achieve the political power they want, don't you think it's kind of reasonable that Republicans might start, I don't know, arresting people who are trans, like en masse, or sending them over to constructed forced conversion camps? Because they've talked about that as well, the idea that transgenderism is a social contagion and that it needs to be cured. Like, that's not an uncommon attitude in a lot of these conservative circles.
Yeah, and that again, I hope that doesn't happen. I
Me
hope we
too.
don't get to that point. I hope that we can deter the power of the Republicans. I hope that the courts can change for the better. I hope Biden can put in some more Supreme Court judges. Like,
Well, I agree. I hope for those things too. Sure. We don't know how this country is going to be situated a couple of years from now. We don't know how much of a legal barrier there's going to be between Republicans and genocide, proper, real genocide. At any rate, I think that just trying to force trans people into being second-class citizens itself is plenty justification for saying stuff like they hate you and they want you dead. I guess like I have to lay this on the conservatives, you know? If they don't want me saying that, then they shouldn't, you know, lead a nationwide effort to ostracize a minority group. It's reasonable to be fearful.
Yeah, I agree. It's reasonable to be fearful. I just question your methods of instilling that fear.
All right, well,
but
they instill the fear. I'm just pointing out what they're doing. I mean, what if not for owning guns? I mean, what are we to do? And really, the whole "they hate you, they want to kill you" thing. I mean, God, the Republicans have really committed to this. You know, I feel like
this isn't
like
I'm saying.
flippant.
Aren't you just doing counter extremism in a way?
No, telling trans people to buy guns to defend their lives against state oppression is not the same as trying to do a genocide against trans people. Those are incomparable degrees of extremism.
Oh, okay. So wait. Is it for state oppression or is it for conservative militias?
Far-right militia groups, state oppression, either or. I don't think they're comparable to encouraging trans people to buy guns to defend themselves from such.
Okay, and again, like, how is state oppression, like, how are owning guns going to help that?
Well, that's complicated, but I do want to indicate that, again, these are not two comparable forms of extremism. The extermination
of a minority. How is owning guns going to help from psychotherapy, from putting trans people in jail? Like, how are even going the full extent of like death camps? Like, how is simply owning gun? That's the conservative logic, that we're going to need guns to protect from a tyrannical government. A tyrannical government doesn't care if you own guns.
No, the officers they send to your door do, though.
All right. I mean,
wait. You brought up them sending you to death camps. Wait, am I the extremist here? What, like, if the Gestapo come to drag the Jews to the train yards, like, should the Jew have a gun? Sure. Like, what? Yeah. Yeah, sure. What's going to save them here? You know, it's not like them not having a gun is going to save them. Yeah. Well, if things get if things get that bad, then at that point, yeah, it's pretty much going to be a bloodbath, no matter how you handle it. Ideally, things don't reach the literal death camp level. You know, hopefully. I don't think any of us want that. Well, any of us in present company. There are Republicans who want that, of course, and they're fighting for it every day. Yeah, hopefully not.
All right. I guess I have nothing really left to say. I was gonna bring up something you said like 3 years ago, but I don't see how it's going to change anything from this conversation right now. I guess.
But I want to ask you. I just want to know, like, if there is like some giant like state genocide or like right-wing militias or like marauding the country or whatever, like some shit like that. What? So we shouldn't own guns then? Like, what do we do? Just give up?
I would say that would be a case where we can probably start talking about some direct action.
You can't start talking about it after it's already happened, though, right? Like, you need to have already talked about it.
No, but there are better methods of preventing that from happening, is what I'm saying.
Sure, and I agree with that. Legislative stuff is generally more effective, but you can do both. Like, you can do the legislative stuff, and you can also, like, I don't know, stockpile a fuck ton of ammunition. They're not mutually exclusive. You just buy the ammo online.
All right. Well, I still disagree with you there, just because I just can't circumnavigate the idea that owning guns is more of a harm to citizens than not.
Well, do you agree
just in a general sense?
Do you agree that it would be effective if far-right militias were trying to prey on liberal inner city areas in like social crisis?
I suppose it could help in certain instances, yes.
Because for me, that's the big one.
I don't think that would stop it from happening.
Well, that's the big one for me, because like so far-right militias represent a tiny minority of people in this country, right? But guns are a force multiplier. A block, like if you have like 10 guys in 2 trucks, like far-right dudes, Patriot Prayer, whatever, neo-Nazis, and they want to like occupy a city block of Portland or something, you know, like you've got 5-over-1s, it's like a majority minority community. If they drive through there and like nobody in that neighborhood has a gun, they can do whatever they want. If you have a gun, you have infinite power for people who don't in a situation like that. It's just how it is. But if there are people in that neighborhood who do have guns, like they have no idea which of the hundreds of windows facing the street have rifles aimed through them. That right there is like a hard stop on occupation. Cities are almost impossible to occupy unless you have like heavy equipment. Because unless you have like an armored vehicle or tanks or whatever, like shit the military has, like you cannot just drive through a city street and not get reduced to mincemeat from the people who you're trying to shoot first because they're in the buildings and you're not, you know? It's like a really effective. So for me, like that's the thing. Like if they ever trying to start like shoot up a neighborhood or something, just a few people in that neighborhood having guns makes a huge difference. And that's like a community defense thing too. It's not like an interpersonal, like go out there and be Rambo type thing. You know, it's like get to know your neighbors. You know, if anything bad ever happens, like does one of us have a gun? That kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that seems like it's a very specific situation that would need to happen. But
any kind of occupation short of full-on military occupation would be would be covered by that, I think. I mean, obviously, if people start bringing in like, you know, if like fighter jets are flying over the city, like obviously at that point, you know, you can't, you know, gun ownership's not going to do much for you.
I just think it shouldn't be a citizen's duty to own a gun and protect their community like that.
Well, I agree that it's bad that we're put in this situation. I don't want to be in this situation. But if the state fails to you know uphold this responsibility, then it's better to have a fallback than to just you know like shrug our shoulders and go like, oh yeah, well they fucked over, so we're fucked.